There are moments when we look at our plans and quietly wonder why they are not unfolding the way we expected. We set goals, we imagine timelines, we picture progress happening in a certain order. And when reality does not match the picture we created, frustration can begin to rise. We may not say it out loud, but internally we ask, why is this taking so long? Why hasn't this happened yet? Did I misunderstand what I was hoping for? At the heart of these questions is a tension between two things: our timeline and God's timing. The difference between the two can feel uncomfortable, because our timeline is usually built around efficiency. God's timing is built around formation. In Habakkuk 2:3 we read, "Though the vision tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not delay." That verse sounds paradoxical. It says the vision may seem delayed, and yet it is not truly late. The delay we feel is often a difference in perspective. We measure time in months and years. God measures readiness, and throughout Scripture we see this pattern repeatedly. Let us return briefly to Joseph. Joseph's dream did not fail, it unfolded. But it unfolded through stages he did not anticipate. If Joseph had become second in command immediately after receiving his dream, he would not have had the administrative skill to manage a famine. He would not have had the emotional maturity to face betrayal. He would not have had the tested character to resist corruption. The years that felt slow were the years that built capacity. The dream was never abandoned. It was prepared for. Now consider Abraham. Abraham received a promise that he would become the father of many nations. Yet years passed without a child. Decades passed. At one point, the waiting became so heavy that Abraham and Sarah attempted to accelerate the promise themselves. They tried to solve the timeline problem through human strategy. The result created complication rather than clarity. Waiting can tempt us to interfere. When we believe something is late, we feel pressure to force it. But God's promises are not strengthened by our impatience. They are fulfilled through His timing. Then we see David again. After being anointed king, David had opportunities to seize the throne prematurely. Saul was vulnerable more than once. David could have accelerated his rise by removing his rival, but David refused. He chose not to take what was not yet given. He understood something important. A crown taken too early carries undesirable consequences. So he waited. Waiting does not mean passivity. It means trusting that timing matters. And then there is Moses. Moses sensed early in life that he was called to deliver his people. But when he tried to act on that calling in his own timing, the situation deteriorated quickly. 40 years later, when God spoke from the burning bush, Moses was no longer impulsive. He was no longer acting from urgency. He had been shaped by wilderness time. What had changed? Not the promise, the person. This brings us to the first strength truth about God's timing. God's timing is designed to shape the person, not just deliver the outcome. We often focus on the outcome, the job, the opportunity, the relationship, the breakthrough. But God focuses on who we are becoming while we wait. If the opportunity arrives before the character is ready, the opportunity can become overwhelming. The second strength truth is that delay is not denial. Habakkuk reminds us that a vision may seem slow but will arrive at the appointed time. Appointed time implies intention, not accident, not neglect, not oversight. Appointed. There are moments when what feels like delay is simply alignment taking place. Circumstances aligning, character aligning, understanding aligning. The third strength truth is that forcing the timeline creates unnecessary strain. When Abraham tried to accelerate the promise, the outcome brought complication. When Moses acted prematurely in Egypt, it led to exile. When we push against timing, we often create more pressure than peace. God's timing does not require manipulation. It requires trust. And trust grows through steady faithfulness. Now let us bring this into modern life. We may set career goals with specific ages attached. We may imagine life milestones unfolding in a particular order. We may assume certain progress markers will happen within certain windows. When those expectations are not met, discouragement can creep in, but perhaps the delay is protecting us. Perhaps skills are still developing. Perhaps emotional maturity is still forming. Perhaps perspective is still expanding. Sometimes we interpret a slower pace as stagnation, but a slower pace can produce stability. Consider two people who begin similar paths. One advances rapidly and assumes significant responsibility early. The other advances gradually, building experience layer by layer. Years later, when complexity increases, who is more stable? Often, it is the one whose growth was gradual. Gradual growth builds capacity quietly, and capacity is what sustains long-term success. This leads us to a practical question. How do we live well when our timeline does not match what we expected? First, we should shift from asking, "Why is this late?" to asking, "What is the purpose of this season?" Second, we should remain faithful in present responsibilities. Joseph served faithfully in prison. David served faithfully in the fields. Moses shepherded faithfully in the wilderness. None of them stopped developing simply because their visible progress was paused. Third, we should resist comparison. Comparison intensifies impatience. When we measure ourselves against someone else's timeline, we distort our own process. Again, Psalm 31:15 reminds us, "My times are in your hands." If our times are in God's hands, then our season is purposeful, even if it feels slower than expected. God's timing may stretch us, but it does not neglect us. It refines us, it does not forget us. And when the right moment arrives, what was built in hidden time supports visible responsibility. Joseph stepped into leadership with confidence because preparation had preceded promotion. David stepped into kingship with humility because waiting had preceded authority. Moses stepped into deliverance with steadiness because wilderness had preceded leadership. In each case, timing shaped strength. So if today feels slower than your original plan, it does not mean your life is off course. It may mean your foundation is being reinforced. Or timelines are often built around desire. God's timing is built around wisdom, and wisdom sees further than we do. Instead of rushing the season, we can remain steady within it. We can continue developing skill. We can continue strengthening character. We can continue walking faithfully in small responsibilities. Because small responsibilities handled well prepare us for larger ones handled wisely. If something has not yet unfolded, that does not mean it never will. It may mean it is being shaped properly. God's timing does not waste years. It uses them. It layers growth gradually. When we look back at Joseph's prison, David's caves, Moses' wilderness, we do not see wasted time. We see preparation. And preparation is the foundation God builds before promotion. So if your timeline feels slower than expected, breathe. You are not behind schedule. You are in formation. And formation under God's timing produces stability that rushed success cannot sustain. Stay faithful, be patient. God's timing is not competing with yours. It is refining you for what comes next. 'Cause what is built slowly often lasts the longest.